Howdy, everybody. It's been a little bit since I've made a video. I was going to do a live stream with some of my buddies, and then it turned out that they canceled the live stream, and I was unaware. And I thought, man, I've already made plans to sit in front of this. So, if you have any questions or anything of that nature, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to kind of fill you in on what's been going on. I'm fine. I appreciate everybody's concern. I've gotten a lot of emails and messages and asked, how I've been doing because I haven't made a video in a while. I've been doing good, actually. And that's part of the reason why I haven't made a video in a while because I've been doing pretty darn good. And I think you all probably know that this channel is not my source of income. It's my passion, it's my hobby. But, I do the best I can with this when I can and try to update with reviews. So, with that said, I've been extremely busy, but I do have some stuff that I've been working on in the background. I've got a Genelec 8361A review coming soon. I just posted the data for the Dyne Audio Contour 20i as well. And I posted that on my Patreon page. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit scatterbrained here because I'm making sure that you all can see me and hear me. So if you can, please let me know in the chat. It's been a long time since I've used any live stream software. I want to make sure that I've got everything hooked up properly. Um, cool. All right. Thanks. Thanks, Siphonics. So that's kind of what's been going on in my world. Again, nothing bad. Quite the opposite. Doing quite well. And yeah. So I'm trying to pick back up where I left off, and it takes a little bit. It's kind of like if you go to the gym regularly and then maybe you take a week off, and then a week becomes 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks becomes 2 months, and then 2 months becomes 2 years. You can run into that. And that channel or this channel is very much like that for me. The longer I take between reviews, the harder it is for me to I don't know if it's motivation, but let's just say that it's motivation. The harder it is for me to find the motivation to create a new video. I love this stuff, but luckily it's not my bread and butter. So when I feel like I need to take a break, I want to focus on other things in my life. I have the luxury of doing that. And I appreciate you all here, jumping into the chat and saying hey. And so, with that said, is there anything else that I can think of to start talking about until somebody comes up with some questions to make me look foolish or maybe make me look pseudo smart so I can give you an answer with some big words? Yeah. So, the Floyd Tools Sound Reproduction fourth edition has come out recently. If you guys are interested, you go check that out. I haven't read it myself yet. I'm actually waiting on my copy. Outside of that, I'm in Alabama. The weather's gotten cooler here. I think some of you probably know that I rode BMX for a long time. So BMX is like the trick bike stuff. I rode that for a long time until I was around 20. How old was I? 20, 25, I think. Yeah, I was 25 and I had to have back surgery on my lower back. So I had a bulging disc. Started off as a herniated disc, but I kept riding and kept doing the stuff that I knew I shouldn't have done. The doctor prescribed me like 800 milligram tablets of, I guess, like the equivalent of ibuprofen, right? So I would continue to ride. I'd pop two of those and then go ride through the pain. That was really stupid. Wound up turning a herniated disc into a bulging disc, almost ruptured. And so they did some surgery on me, and then I kind of had to quit riding for a while. Every once in a while, I get back on the BMX, but dirt jump BMX, mountain bike BMX crossover has become a thing like the last 4 or 5 years. A buddy of mine has one of those bikes and he let me borrow it because I was considering getting one just to goof around on. So I've been rolling around on that in my neighborhood. Turns out there's some trails not too far from my house, which means that I need to check my health insurance to make sure it's up to date. Because as much as I love the hobby, I'm not that great at it. But it's fun. It gives me time to, or gives me a way to pass the time and stay healthy while also wrecking myself. But yeah, so things have been good. I appreciate you all jumping in and asking me and sending me messages and just checking on me. I really do appreciate it. So let's see here. What do you think of Denon being bought by Samsung? Do you think they will get rid of Dolby Vision? Honestly, I didn't even know that Denon was bought by Samsung. I knew that B&W, but I guess maybe Denon Marantz is part of that same umbrella. I knew that B&W speakers had been bought by that. And I do find it interesting that somewhere Samsung press, whoever came out and said that they were not planning on really changing the design of B&W speakers. So that's interesting. So here's my thoughts on that. And I know some of the hardcore measurement files are kind of like, oh, well, the speakers are going to suck then, because frankly, some of the B&W speakers sound good, some of them are terrible. There's very good reasons that you can see in the measurements. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand why the B&W speakers sound the way they sound and why some people really like the way they sound, the very lively sound and the guttural bass impact of like their 802s and whatnot. It makes perfect sense if you see data for it. So that's not even being called into question. Um, what's being called into question is some people think that Samsung now bringing B&W under. I guess I can't say B&W, right? It's Bowers and Wilkins. They want the whole name said. So I'm going to say Bowers and Wilkins. People want Bowers and Wilkins products, or think at least that they should be redesigned to fit some sort of standard along the lines of Harman, right? Because Samsung also owns Harman. To that, I say, no, I don't think it makes any sense to buy Bowers and Wilkins with an established audience and then redesign the speakers to sound a certain way. As much as I think it would be helpful, because some of those B&W speakers are honestly, they're terrible to my ears. And I don't even care what the measurements show. I just think they sound really bad. Other ones are a little bit better, but that's my opinion. Having said that, yeah, I still don't think that it would be a good look for Samsung to go and change the overall tonal balance of the Bowers and Wilkins, at least not initially. Maybe that's something that's a slow burn. Hey, kind of like start edging towards something. I would really be interested in talking with some of the engineers that design speakers for Bowers and Wilkins, and it would have to be off the record, probably, but I would just be interested to know what they think about the buyout, and what their thoughts and concerns are. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Now, the other thing I'll say again, this is just all my opinion, right? This is just like me talking to whoever the heck is listening now, and maybe later if I don't delete this video. So let me preface this by saying that I can have two speakers that measure the same in room and sound entirely different. It's very easy to do. You can also have two speakers that measure the same on axis anechoically and still sound completely different. If you know how to read the measurements and if you understand that speakers make sound all around them instead of just in one direction, then it makes sense, right? Because you may have a trailing off high frequency that is more trailing off with one particular speaker than another speaker. And so when you factor in the room gain and things of that nature and the reflections from the sidewall, you can get a different tonal balance in a standard room. Now, if you have a speaker that is a certain way on axis anechoic, and you listen to them in an anechoic chamber, then yeah, they're going to sound the same if they measure the same. But we put them in rooms, that's why they don't sound the same, because they also don't measure the same. That's the trick. That's that little gotcha. So, oh, they measure the same, but they sound different. Okay, well, then they don't measure the same. Period. Point blank. Dunzo. Having said that, I think, and at least again in my opinion, that if the Bowers and Wilkins sound profile was re-engineered to be something similar to a more linear on-axis response and a linear falling off-axis response, then I would say, well, who needs another speaker like that? Like I could argue with myself on this, trust me, but that's just my initial gut reaction is let them be them and let other brands do the linear stuff. And then that gives us as customers a more diverse selection. Then that gets back to the whole thing about, well, if your goal is hi-fi and hi-fi is attempting to recreate whatever is on the disc, I'm not talking about a live event. Hi-fi should not recreate a live event. Period. You shouldn't buy speakers so they sound live, because what you're listening back to is a recording that has been mixed and mastered by somebody. So even that is not going to sound the same. It's just not. So that's one gripe I have about the whole audiophile community is they say, well, I bought X and Y speakers because they want to sound the same as a live event. Okay, put a different disc on and see what happens. Or grab a different mastering of that same disc and it's not going to sound the same anymore. So the whole notion of buying speakers so they sound like a live reproduction is silly, point blank. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't take my Adderall today. I'm a little bit scatterbrained. B&W owners buy with their eyes. I mean, dude, a lot of people buy with their eyes. That's the truth of it. And I have no problem with that. I think that at the end of the day, you've got to live with the speaker that you've chosen. Speaking for myself, if I've got two speakers, one sounds incredible, but is ugly, and the other one sounds almost incredible, but looks really good, it's the whole package. I'm going to go with the one that sounds almost incredible, but isn't hideous. And I think that's fair. And so then you've got the extremes, right? So there's going to be different opinions in there. There's going to be people buying with their eyes, buying with their ears, trying to do it both ways. That's why we have measurements to help you understand, hey, this speaker is going to sound different to this speaker in this regard. And we can show you that in the measurements. Now, at the end of the day, you've got to buy whatever it is that you're going to be proud of and enjoy the most looking at. Don Watkins, hey Aaron, I own ELAC Unify 2.0 speakers and would like to have speakers around 1K that are both dynamic for 70s rock and also offer a good, truthful soundstage for chamber music. What suggestions? So if you go to my website, I will pull it up and drop the link in this live stream. So this is my recommendations page. I haven't filled it out entirely, but the bookshelf and the floor standing speaker categories are pretty up to date. I think I need to go back and put in the Mo5 V10 for the floor standers. But if you go and look at that, that'll have my top 5 in different class prices. So if I go and I look at my bookshelf speakers under $1,000, let's see here. I've got Klipsch RP600M2. They're pretty good. I would use EQ with them, bring down the top end. ELAC DBR 62, and then let's see, Ascend Acoustic Sierra 1 V2 and Cali Audio IN 8 V2, which is a powered speaker. I think all of those would be good options in that $1,000 price bracket. Now, if you step up and go to the next thing, then you've got the Ascilab C6B. You've got the Audio First Fidelia speaker. It's a kit speaker. You've got the KEF Concerto Q Meta. And there's some other ones in there too that are all, let's say, ballpark around $1,300. Those three are really good. I reviewed a speaker recently where people were upset with me because I wasn't praising it. Now, 2-3 years ago, I would have praised it. I would have said it's a really great speaker. But the problem is in that time, since that speaker was already on the market, I don't know when it was developed, but it was already on the market. Since that time, those three speakers that I just named, the KEF Concerto Q Meta, the Ascilab C6B, and the Audio First Fidelia speaker all beat this other speaker. And if you take things, if you timestamp them, when you say, all right, we're never moving from this date on, then yeah, sure, 2-3 years ago, speaker A would have been fine. But now you've got these three others, and I would gladly recommend these three others over this other one. And that's the thing about technology is it keeps moving. So if manufacturers want to make better product and keep up, then they've got to put in more work and they've got to keep up. And I know that it's simple coming from somebody who just reviews speakers and doesn't run a business. So I appreciate that it's not that easy, but at the same time, that's what's driving your sales is your competition. So did you see Audio First new 3-way speaker? Yes, and I believe I'm getting a pair to review soon. So I'm actually really excited about that. It looks like a really promising speaker. Hey, Philip Bronstein gave me a $10 super chat. I don't know what R is. I don't know. I'll Google that later, but I appreciate it. What is your take on PMC speakers and ATC speakers? Okay. Everything I'm about to say is purely based on opinion, not based on any measurements whatsoever. Okay. If you're asking me which one would I go to just based on what I've experienced in the past 20 years or so, I'm going to go with ATC. That's been my experience, is that it's been better products overall. I've heard some of PMC's newer stuff and it sounded okay, but it was in a hotel room and people were talking, and it's just not the ideal place to really get a feel for how speakers are going to compare to another speaker. I'm hoping at some point to get both of these brands in to review. It would be nice, frankly. I review a lot of the same brands because either the manufacturers are willing to send them to me because they don't really have anything to hide, or the owners are happy to send stuff to me because they're just interested. And when the owners send stuff, usually it's more common things. It's definitely not like boutique brands most of the time. And PMC and ATC aren't brands that I see discussed a lot in my comment section. And maybe that's simply because I haven't reviewed those particular speakers yet. So if you have either one of those brand speakers and you're interested in seeing a review, let me know. And, I'll see what I can do about maybe trying to review something. I will say though, that for the next couple months, I'm pretty busy. So I'm not going to be taking on anything else for probably a little while until I get through some of these other speaker reviews. But I just wanted to mention that real fast. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to throw something up on the screen. Google Chrome is requesting you to do blah, blah, blah. Well, your mama. Okay. All right. So this is my website for those of you who don't know. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, I'm going to blow this up a little bit. If you go to the top right and you click contact, here is a form where you can request a consultation. The reason I'm showing you this is because I get a lot of emails pretty regularly, and I'll drop this link in pretty regularly, asking me about X, Y, or Z speaker. What speaker would you run? What blah blah blah, and listen, I appreciate that you're willing to trust me and my opinion on things like this, but hair in my mouth. This past summer, I had gotten 10 messages and emails combined, right? Asking me about things. And I just like at that point, I was just thinking, I can't do this anymore. So I've started doing consultations. If you are interested in a consultation, use that form. I just dropped the link down here. Send me some information about what you're looking for, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. When I do these consultations, if you're in the area, I can come over to your house and I can help you set speakers up. I'm hopeful that I'm going to be able to go do some video of a guy's house and setup that I've set up for him recently that I've done consultation for. And I think some people are going to be really surprised by some of the things that I did in the listening room. Um, I feel like sometimes I'm behind the screen so much, people don't understand that I actually get out there and set up systems and listen to systems. So it'll be kind of an interesting video if we're able to set that up. Having said that, if you're not in my area, I'll do phone call, I'll do Zoom, Skype, whatever we need to do for a video call, and we'll kind of walk through things and we'll go from there. So again, if you're interested, the link at the bottom of this video, I'll put it in the comment section if I remember to, and we can go from there. Brandon, I thought the Emotiva Tower speakers reviews were coming. They are. I just haven't gotten there yet. I mean, I've got probably 10 speakers that I've got to review, and I've just hit a point in my life where I've slowed down a lot of the external stuff, but it's good things. It's not nothing bad, but yeah, so it just feels I'm going at my own pace here. Let's see here. What about the Fine Audio F50 F501S floor standing speaker? How they sound? I have no idea. First time watcher, I just purchased a pair of Klipsch KG4s. Are the Kreitz tweeters upgrade worth it? No idea, man. I don't know anything about that tweeter upgrade. Usually when you see upgrades, the only reason that I would upgrade is because if it's an older product and like the ferrofluid may be drying out or could have dried out in the tweeter, then that would make sense. Outside of that, it would be on a one by one basis, and it would depend on how significant the upgrade is, and also is your time and effort worth it, or would it be better spent on just buying something else? A lot of the times these upgrades really are just selling you crap. It's just more stuff that you don't really need, and you would be better off taking that money and buying something else. There are cases that I've seen though that some of these upgrades, and I'm not talking about Danny at GR Research because I know that's the first thing a lot of people are going to think. I'm talking about in the DIY community, right? So I'm part of DIY audio, all sorts of DIY audio groups on Facebook. Um, I've seen where people will upgrade the Wharfdale Linton 85 components, and then I saw where Peter Como came into that discussion was basically like, why? Like it's designed this way, and you're basically just screwing the speaker up. I really find that kind of stuff interesting. So, in many cases, it's not really worth the effort. In some cases, it might be, but it's going to be a case by case condition. Valeria, yes, 8 inches better, noticeably even. Oh, I missed that. Sorry, I'm not sure what was being discussed there. What do you think about putting surround and rear surround in the ceiling? So I don't think that I'll put surround speakers up that high. They're designed to be put more at ear level. And, if you're talking Atmos, that's one thing. And if you're talking about just having sound, then maybe. But I've recently consulted with a guy, and ultimately, what he landed on, I think, and I haven't heard back from him. I need to touch base. Um, is that he couldn't put surround speakers to the side because of the big open space that he had, and he was gonna have to put them up high, and he was going through so much effort to try to have surround and Atmos for a system that I think probably wasn't gonna be worth it in the end because everything was gonna be so misplaced that I just recommended he go with a standard stereo setup, and that be it. I don't know what he did, but we'll see. The best audiophile? Okay. I thought I read it as best. What's the best part of your job as a reviewer? What's your next challenge? So I want to clarify that I don't really view this as my job because I actually have a job, but I hear what you're saying. I just kind of want to make note of that for anybody who's listening and is not aware that this is not actually my day job. I just do this as I can and on the side. So the best part, I think honestly, it's just getting to listen to different speakers. You probably guessed that. The other aspect of it that I like is just being able to talk about different sound and how it relates to measurements and how it might sound in your room and being able to come at it from the analytical perspective. Just because that I'm kind of an analytical, I'm a data nerd just by default. The engineering side of my brain wants to evaluate things in that way. So first and foremost, it's about the music, right? Like I would have never imagine somebody seriously going through all this effort to create a channel, to provide measurements to people he's never met, and he doesn't like music. That would be crazy. I'm not that crazy. I'm not clinical, not yet. So I would say that the best part, again, is just getting to hear different speakers, see different speaker designs. And then I like the ability to measure the speakers and look at the measurements and see, like, oh, okay, well, I see where a design trade off was made, but it makes sense to me. Or, if I were doing this, I wouldn't have done that. But then you also factor in the fact that these speakers are being manufactured and the company is trying to make money. So when you're doing that, it's a little bit different than if you're a boutique brand, you can charge 10K for a pair of speakers. That changes things. So from that perspective, I just really find this stuff interesting. I've been loving the Ascilab C6B. Thanks for the recommendation. Cool, man. Yeah, they're a really good speaker. I've got some other Ascilab speakers coming in I've already got them for review, but I've got them coming up to review at some point. But the first thing I'm going to try to get done is the Dyn Audio. I keep want to say confidence, and it messes me up every time. The Contour 20i, and then the Genelec 8361, and then I've got a pair of speakers from it's Catstrup. I do this all the time. I can never remember. Castrup speakers. Okay, I'll show you guys these. If you're on my Patreon page or you're a member of my YouTube channel and you support in that way, you've already seen this, but this is some information about what's coming soon. So let's see if you go to the product page, the Sora 800. This is a cool speaker. So I've got these set up in my living room. I've been listening to them for about 2 weeks now. It's the 8-inch purified mid bass driver. I'm not sure what dome tweeter is used in here. Obviously, it's an elliptical waveguide. Um, yeah. but they're really cool. I haven't measured them yet. I've just been listening to them, like I said, for the past couple weeks, and I really like them. Some nice bass extension. I don't know how low. I mean, I'd be surprised probably if they get below about 40 hertz. But then again, I haven't really pushed a lot of bass heavy content on them. Just most of it's been kind of my standard heavy listening music, but without the rap aspect. So it could be anything from 90s country to maybe some jazz, um, 80s pop, 70s rock, things of that nature, 90s rock. I've been really into a 90s alternative rock mood in the past month, like STP. Let's see here, Soul Asylum, Gin Blossoms, and many more. Pretty much, if you go look at the Rolodex of Billboard top, let's say top 10 of 95 through about 99, I've been really listening to a lot of that lately. I love music that I grew up listening to. It's very nostalgic for me. I love how music can transport you. I mean, I can hear a song and I can immediately have a memory associated to that, good or bad. An ex girlfriend when I was in high school, being at a buddy's house. Every time I hear, this is going to be an odd one, but for some reason, every time I hear Master P's make them say, and the reason I'm thinking that is because I just watched the versus battle with No Limit and Cash Money Records. But every time I hear make them say, I'll always think back to my friend Justin Ryan in eighth grade because he would always go, and if you know the song, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So those kind of memories that you have tied to music is one of the greatest things that life can give you. And unfortunately, sometimes you'll hear a song. I heard a song uh, back at one. It was a Brian McKnight song because somebody sent me an R&B playlist from the '90s. So that song popped up, and I immediately thought of the girlfriend from high school. That was supposed to be our song, right? So it's a little bit bittersweet, but at the same time, it's different now that time has passed on. I don't have bad memories. It's just like, hey, that was a cool song back then, and it's still a cool song now. So anyway, try not to get too emo here, but yeah, music. It's awesome. Friend had to use ceiling surround speakers for rear channel. They are pretty directional. Only sounds right sitting in the middle seat. Yeah, I mean that would make sense to me. New Genelec 8380A, Aaron, new mid range and 15. I have asked them about that. I have. So Genelec loaned me the 8361A that I reviewed. And when I sent it back, I was like, a lot of people have been asking me in the comments. I haven't made video in almost 2 months, and I've gotten people messaging me privately and emailing me and finding old videos and commenting in my old videos asking about that particular speaker. So I did ask Genelec. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to move the screen over here. All right, I'm about to lose my mind. I did ask Genelec about reviewing that 8330A. Let me see if I can show this to the rest of the group who may not be aware of what the speaker is. Okay, so on Sweetwater, yeah, that's $10,000 for one, for just one. Oh man, but this speaker looked dope. It's got that coaxial design from Genelec. They do a fantastic. Them and Kef just like they do excellent work with their concentric drivers. And then yeah, 15-inch bass mid bass driver. Curious what the crossover is. I don't know if it tells me on here. Uh, Crossover 480. Okay, so 480. That makes about that sounds about right. So for a 15-inch woofer, if you assume 15 inches, I'm gonna show you guys how to do the math. So you take speed of sound, divide it by the effective diameter. And in this case, if it's a 15, let's just say it's effectively 14. Okay. So that's half roll. So half edge surround to half edge surround. And then if you want to use half a wavelength, you can do that. So we'll see where that starts beaming. 482. 482. Okay. But truly, if you're talking about going from fully omnidirectional to beginning to beam, that's going to be 241. So that crossover frequency of 480 hertz seems fine to me in terms of directionality. I will be curious to see what it actually looks like in terms of measurements go. But honestly, I almost don't even give a shit about the measurements. I just really want to hear that speaker because look at it, right? Look at it. I know how large that concentric driver is. Seeing it on scale with that 15-inch mid bass driver, that thing looks like a beast. Let's see how tall it is. 32 inches. So you're almost, it's about a meter tall. I mean, not quite, but you're close to it. Maybe like point 0.8 or so, point 0.9 meters tall. That's big. And then it says 119 pounds with amplifier. Curious if the amplifier is off board or is it installed into the speaker? Let's see. Probably installed into it. Yeah, installed into it. Yep. Okay. Man, this thing looks like a beast. I really, really hope I get a chance to hear it, at least hear it, even if I don't review it. Do. Oh, I heard the 8380 at show can confirm is amazeballs. I haven't heard amazeballs in a long, long time. The mid range is new and lighter and stiffer. Okay, all right. Well, that sounds like me. Keep moving. By the way, great to see you back, Aaron. Thank you, man. I'm glad to be back. Fox Gaming, what's up, dude? Being a broke guy myself, I'm curious if you've had a look at the Coda W by Kef, which ain't exactly dirt cheap. Could be something to consider asking Kef for a review, I guess. Yeah, there is a person who was going to send me a pair of those speakers. As a matter of fact, I need to reach out, and he may even be watching this. So if you're watching this, let's touch base about that. He was going to send me a pair when he got them in for his shop. So he's a dealer. Sometimes I like going through users or dealers just because it keeps me out of the direct loop of Kef or any other brands. And for the most part, it's really not an issue. But every now and again, I feel like if I'm heavy on reviewing a brand, then people start to think that there's some kind of bias going on there. So every once in a while, I kind of like to step back and be like, okay, well, I'm gonna see if I can get that from somewhere else, just to break that chain a little bit, if that makes sense. But at the end of the day, if I have to get it from the manufacturer to review it, then I'm going to do that. And vice versa. If I have to get it from a user to review it, I'm going to do that. Same way I've done with a lot of speakers. And I think brands would probably be better served to just go ahead and accept the fact that if I really want to review a speaker, I'm probably going to find a way to review that speaker and just, work with me. It doesn't really give you anything extra other than if I see something that looks really off, then I'll probably email the brand and be like, hey, this doesn't look right. Otherwise, the review is going to go out there. So it really doesn't make a lot of sense to not just go ahead and work with me. I'm kind of getting on a soapbox here. But at the same time, they're going to do what they want to do. And I'm going to get a hold of a speaker if I really want to review it. And if you guys really want to see it. €5 super chat. Thank you from Valerio. Follow up to my previous super chat. Up to what frequency does an 8-inch have an advantage over a 5-inch, all else being equal? Okay, so we can kind of use, there's different things at play here, but we can kind of use that same information that I was talking about a second ago. So let's just say we want to find out, first of all, where a beaming point is for an 8-inch. So we're going to use, I'm just going to use half wave because out to about 180 degrees, it's kind of close enough. It's not perfect. In an ideal world, you should use quarter wave as you go from Omni to anything other than Omni, but half wave. So what I'm saying here is speed of sound is 13,500 inches per second, give or take. And then you want to say, let's say we got an 8-inch mid bass, mid range, whatever. And we're going to say, I want the half wave of that. So that says that the beaming frequency is about 843 hertz. Again, give or take. It's not perfect, but it's close to the ballpark. Now, what that means is that 8-inch mid bass driver is going to play up to about 843 hertz, and then it's going to start getting narrower and narrower and narrower as you go higher in frequency. So you could say that if you wanted to use an 8-inch driver, you probably need to cross it around 800 to 900 hertz, and also that would depend on the slope and things of that nature. Now, if you wanted to say, what about a 5-inch? Then you just replace that 8 with a 5, and you got about 1350. So that's saying that you go to about 1.3K for a 5-inch to mate with a tweeter, and that would help with directionality. Again, this all assumes everything else is perfect. I mean, that you crossover slopes are correctly, that you didn't wire the tweeter completely out of phase, and basic things like that. But what this tells you is that between the 8-inch and the 5-inch, you've got about 500 hertz or so of additional coverage and higher frequency for the 5-inch. And what that really means is that you don't really have to worry about crossing your tweeter over super low, or you don't have to worry about getting a compression driver that can handle a low crossover point to mate with the 8, or you don't have to have a very large waveguide to boost up the low end of that tweeter. Basically, just corner loading the tweeter, if you think of it like that. Um, and so that saves you some either space or saves you from having to worry about popping a tweeter in order to cross it over so low that it mates properly to the 8-inch. Now, going on the upper end, like getting away from the crossover point and going higher, those speakers, now it's going to depend on the geometry of the cone. It's going to depend on the cone material itself. But personally, and again, this is just me personally, just looking at something and saying, okay, and this is ballpark. Um, I generally will say, all right, well, whatever the half wave is, just multiply it. So really, it's just the speed of sound divided by the diameter of the driver. And I say around there is going to be the part where you start getting breakup issues. Again, I know some of you might watch this back later and you're going to think, well, that's not entirely true. And I'm saying that that's not always the case. But if you want a quick back of the envelope calculation to get you in the ballpark, you can just say speed of sound divided by the driver diameter. That's going to get you to the point where you're going to start having breakup issues. Now, again, breakup issues are going to be dependent upon the geometry and the cone material. So, like aluminum cones, they can break up further in frequency, like higher in frequency, but they're going to be pretty significant in terms of like the the amplitude of the breakup. Um, a paper cone is going to be a little bit more spread out, may not have as high amplitude or maybe as narrow Q in breakup. And really the breakup stuff, you know, if it were, what's the word I'm looking for here? If it had like a constant directivity, meaning that if the breakup was continuous, let's say it's plus 5 decibels at 5 kilohertz. Okay. If that breakup were continuous as you go off axis, then you would just put a notch filter in there or use EQ and just cut that, right? But the problem is that it doesn't do that. As you go off axis, that breakup peak plus 5 dB may turn into a dip at one frequency. It may shift over in not frequency, angle. It may turn into a dip at a different angle, or it may shift over in frequency, or it may spread out. It's going to do different things because, again, the cone is being non-modal. So the cone is doing these weird things. No more is it acting like a pure piston, right? So in, out, right? Pressurizing the room. Now it's going, and so as you go from directly on axis and then you start going away to the other side, the frequency response is shifting dramatically. So you run into that when you have to worry about different size speakers. And then that means you either really need to use a really good cone material, or you have to plan for a really steep crossover slope, notch filters, and things of that nature. So DIY guys deal with that a lot. When I've built speakers in the past, I've always, pretty much always, gone completely active with DSP. When I used to do the home theater stuff, I would use the Rain RPM 88, which had their Dragnet software. It was like just incredible. Now there's better stuff, a lot smaller. The Rain was 8 in, 8 out. And I think it was like yay wide, like yay tall. Um, had a fan on that could get kind of loud. Now you can just buy a mini DSP that's like this, you know. So yeah, it's come a long way. Technology has. Would love a video to you showing or debunking audiophile things using measurements, things like quality audio cables, driver break-in, power conditioners, etc. So here's the thing: all those can matter. The problem is how much they matter and should they matter. So first of all, it shouldn't matter what cables you use. It shouldn't matter what power conditioner you use or surge protector you use, and break-in shouldn't matter. Break-in tends to be more prominent with suspension related things like subwoofers or mid bass drivers. Break-in really tends to, from what I know, and let's pretend like I know nothing, right? From what I know, the glue is one thing that can be pretty critical. I know I've been doing this for a long time. I know a lot of manufacturers that actually design drive units, and there's been a couple guys that I've talked to that said when they came out with some mid bass designs and kind of close to the side of subwoofer, that the glue for the spider to the voice coil was kind of a problem. Now, that said, My thing is, and I've read this elsewhere, so I don't honestly don't know if I thought of this or if I read this a long time ago and I think I thought of this, right? But it doesn't matter. The point that I like and I kind of harp on a little bit here when it talks about break in is, well, if a speaker's going to break in and it's going to take 50 hours to where it sounds good, what happens after 50 hours? Does it ever get worse? Right? Does it always only get better? Does it ever get worse? And these are things that like any person with a rational brain should be able to think and go, "Oh, yeah, that's kind of weird." Right? Now again, we're talking about materials and mechanics of materials. Some things do change. But for the most part, I wouldn't worry about anything unless it's a subwoofer with a lot of stroke, maybe a mid bass driver, something like that. For tweeters and things of that nature, I mean, as soon as you hit it with the first burst of music, it should be broken in. If you're talking about cables, some brands will do things to cables to make them sound different. You shouldn't do that. You're talking about power conditioners. Some brands will do things to power conditioners to make them sound different. You shouldn't do that. If you're attempting to change the sound on purpose to get people to think that there's a difference in in what they're hearing, in order basically to validate what they're hearing, I don't like that. I think that you really should only just be trying to amplify the signal. You know, it should be signal in, signal out. And at the end of the day, we as the consumer, if we don't like a track or don't like a mastering or a mix, then we can try to do something on our end via EQ, or we go try to find a better master. And that's why there are remasters all the time. I have videos about this. There's one particular gentleman who didn't even know that there were remasters, and he makes videos talking about setting up $100,000 stereos. And I'm like, how do you not know this? So it can be news to anybody, and it may be news to you, but keep that in mind, you know, and maybe the same thing goes for like Spotify. Like if you're jumping over from Spotify to Apple Music and you're listening to the same song, you're like, wow, these sound completely different. It must be the bit rate. Probably not. It's probably that they use different masterings. And you have to dig a good bit to understand or to know what masterings they're using. Some of them will find it or make it kind of easy to find. But sometimes it's not entirely easy to do that. I've got a whole like I don't even know. I've got a whole lot. We're talking in the hundreds of Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs remasters of different albums. Some of them sound better than the original CD pressing. Some of them don't. There's some that Tears for Fears shout. There's a drum at the beginning of the track, and I can't remember which way it is, but in the original version, there was a note that the drums were switched on purpose, and then I think it was the MFSL version where they switched it back because they thought it was supposed to be switched back. That's a difference. Like that's a real audible difference that you go, the heck, that ain't why is it are my wires reversed? What's going on here? No, it's because the master and the remaster were different. And it wasn't really supposed to be that way. So you can even have human error when somebody is just remastering something, taking the mix and swapping channels by accident. That kind of stuff happens. And honestly, to me, that is the stuff that is really interesting about this hobby of ours is, you know, we're buying all these speakers and stuff, but we have no idea what's going on in the control room or when somebody gets you know, their analog tape and they're remastering it for this new company. We have no idea what's going on, but yet we're going to argue about cables. Like, all right, let's see here. Oh wow, I've missed a lot of stuff. Oh, and I'll go back to the break-in thing. So I saw this on ASR where Amir had tested maybe a speaker or something, and he tested like one speaker and he concluded, well, break-in doesn't exist. Okay, so that's the problem with this argument stuff, right? So there's nuance to everything. I could take one speaker, blast it, test it, and get different parameters than if I blasted it later. Matter of fact, I've got data on my website that shows the cold TS parameters just from a simple little 1 volt measurement look a lot different for some speakers, some drive units, because maybe the drive unit design isn't that good with more power on them. And the way that enclosures should be built is based on when the speaker is being driven with a larger signal, or maybe a lower signal, but for a longer period of time. And you can do that with clipable measurements, but it's not with the near field scanner stuff. It's the LSI module that I use very occasionally, but it's only when I measure raw drive units. But I want to go back again to the point that what I feel is very disingenuous about the whole community, measurement people, non measurement people, I don't care, is that everybody wants to have some kind of clickbait dumbass title, and they want to say that it's this way all the time when it's never this way all the time. It's this way sometimes, this way sometimes, and the truth is right here in the middle. And it's all about nuance. It's all about, it depends, right? Like, what's the situation? Does the change really matter? That's the real question. Because yeah, we can show a change, but does the change really matter at the end of the day? Um, I don't know. I'll try to tackle some of that stuff at some point. You know, for the longest time, I avoided doing stuff like that, but now I don't really give a shit. You know, if you don't know what you don't know, then that's fine. But I don't appreciate the very disingenuous nature uh, of audio, the audio community, just whatever, you know. So we'll see. Do you think Ascilab have a real shot to disrupt the industry? I do. I definitely do. It just depends on what the prices wind up going to. You know, like when I reviewed the C6B, it was at a good price. It was about 100 to 200 to maybe $300 less than what I felt were the leading speakers at the time. I know now that they've been picked up by Amir at ASR, at least as far as distribution goes. I don't know the whole story, but I'm aware that he's distributing the speakers. Matter of fact, the F6B, I think. Anyway, some of the speakers that I'm got in for review came from him or his house. Maybe they were the test speakers, but and this isn't anything at him. So I know people want to start fights. It's nothing like that. It really is. The fact of the matter is now that Asai Lab has a US dealer, regardless of who it is, that's going to cause prices to increase even a little bit because now they're no longer direct to consumer. They're going somewhere else and they're having to be shipped somewhere else. So even if you're only paying the additional shipping fees, let's say they're only like 60 extra bucks, you're still paying 60 extra bucks. So I'll be curious to see in the long term what that really means for the consumer. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, they may stay pretty much at the price they are right now, or they may have to go up. I just don't know. So I'll be interested to see what works out with that. And I think that is going to really determine this question. Is it going to really disrupt the industry? Because whatever, 4 months or so ago, I would have said absolutely. And now I'm thinking, well, let's wait and see. In terms of engineering, it's so good. But let's just see what the price is going to wind up falling to and kind of stabilizing as. Can you talk about how to view time alignment between drivers? Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Let's say I don't know how I'm gonna do this. Okay. So let's say you're looking at a side profile. Let's say that this is a tweeter. I'll show my head. Show my head. Okay. So this is a tweeter, and then you've got the mid range below it. This is a terrible idea. Um, if you're out over here and you've got your head. Geez. Okay, tweeter, mid range. All right. So you've got these two stacked. I'm trying to like break my finger here so I can flatten these out. And then your head is over here and you're listening. Well, if the tweeter and the mid range are aligned in time, that means the sound is hitting your ear at the same time between both of those. If you're running something like an active setup, or if you're running a passive setup, or you haven't already done some kind of time alignment, more than likely there's going to be some delay between one of these two speakers. A physical distance usually is the easiest way to determine, but you can also, let's say that we're going to ignore the argument of sound arrives from the voice coil versus sound arrives from the diaphragm, because that's still an interesting topic for people to think about. So let's say that they're just flat planes, right? They got flat planes and they're pressurizing, right? But if you're up here, then you already know that you're physically further away from this bottom speaker, right? So if you try to time align this bottom speaker to arrive at the same time that this tweeter sound arrives, then you're also going to have to reconstruct your crossover to kind of account for that, because most likely the crossover was built with that time alignment gap already taken into place. The idea there is that when you get perfect time alignment, you get better cohesion, you get deeper sound stage, width, maybe. But in my experience, just through running active systems and having to delay and adjust things between a tweeter and a mid, for example, same speaker, not left or right, but same speaker. Um, I felt like I mean, it was not blind because I was controlling the DSP with my laptop, clicking buttons. It always seemed like when you got time alignment dead on, the image tightened up and the soundstage got deeper. Somebody, I don't know, you tell me, but that's my subjective experience. Class AB versus Class D Chinese amps, whichever ones give you the power and you enjoy. So, power and reliability are going to be huge things. There can be reliability issues with stuff built in the US, just like there could be reliability issues with stuff built in China. And I know a lot of people like to crap on Chinese parts, but like Toyota, Honda, when they started out, they put a lot of American brands on their heels because of the tolerances that those guys, Japan, right, were building their cars to, were so far beyond what US cars were built to that the reliability and the long-term life of those Japanese vehicles were better than the US made ones. So this whole notion that just because of where it comes from dictates what the product quality is going to be, you know, another perfect example of it depends and it's all about the nuance. Also, this is more of a general question to anyone, but are any of y'all aware of multiple entry horn designs that are commercially available other than Danley's? I know of the Solana, but that's it. Let me see here. I think I know of one, but I don't know if I can say the name yet. But give me a second. Da, 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 da. Hmm. Yeah, actually, I'm not sure. So I'm gonna have to hold on that before I comment. I'm really not sure. I'm sure there are, um, but I don't know about that one particular brand I was thinking of. Is there any way you can start doing some of the reviews showing after the speaker has been calibrated? I have bought speakers that look terrible in measurements, but after they're calibrated, it ran out there. I'm going to guess you said it sounds better. Uh, well, so that's a room dependent thing. My goal really with the data is to take the room out of the equation and provide you with anechoic data, and then that gives you insight into how a speaker is likely to behave in different rooms. So it's not just that the speaker behaves one way anechoically. It's that it behaves anechoically one way. It's that it behaves this way in a small room with close side walls. It behaves maybe another way or maybe the same way in a larger room, So these are all factors to consider. And I think a lot of times this information gets lost on reviewers, myself included, on readers as well. So it's important to understand that the data is not to be viewed in a vacuum, but it's helpful to consider it for the use of your room and the room layout and things of that nature. I mean, here's an easy example, right? So if you have a speaker that has an issue at the crossover region and it's radiating a lot more energy in the lower treble than it is in the upper mid range due to a crossover mismatch in directivity between the handoff from a tweeter or the mid range to the tweeter, right? So as the mid range narrows and the tweeter comes in and the tweeter is really broad in terms of radiation, well, that tweeter's broad radiation is hitting that sidewall and that's being reflected back to you. So it's going to make that tweeter or that speaker, I should say, sound more sibilant, maybe sharp, maybe grainy, maybe too hot, too bright in that lower treble region. But if you listen to that same speaker, assuming that it had flat on axis response in an open field, it wouldn't sound that way at all. It would sound much more linear because there's no sidewalls. So when you look at the measurements, you have to consider where you're going to put the speaker as well. If you have a really, really large room and there's practically no sidewall involvement, pay more attention to the on axis response, plus or minus 10 degrees, kind of where your head would shift around. If you're putting in a smaller room, put a lot of emphasis on the direct response as well, but also put a lot of emphasis on the side radiation pattern of the speaker. So the reflection points. Um, like 60 degrees, 70 degrees, kind of along those lines. Notice you said Ascilab speakers, plural, which models are coming your way. Honestly, I don't remember. I know one of them is the F6B. I've got them already. I just don't remember what they are. Aaron's Audio Corner. I was listening to Matchbox 20 Real World a bit some weeks ago. That song you mentioned in your R4B review, Aaron, the song grew on me a bit. The main riff is catchy. Yeah, it's a great album. Now, I don't know that it was recorded very well or produced very well, but I really like it. I was 15, I think, when that album came out. See, there's a perfect example. I think of Real World, the first track from that album, and which is Real World. I remember when it was on TRL. Some of you guys may remember this. Let me know in the comments if you remember this. Total Request Live on MTV back in the day. It was summertime. I was out of school. I was in my living room when that came up. It was on the Total Request Live, like top 10. I don't know what number it was, but Rob Thomas comes on and he's saying he's walking a camel or something weird. And I remember my friends were coming over and I had the windows open to the living room and they're coming down the backyard and we're going to ride our BMX bikes. We're about to head into town and ride our BMX bikes. And I can hear them just yelling at each other. They were arguing about something, who knows what. But I remember that like it happened like 10 seconds ago. I remember that vividly as soon as I think of that song. And that's what I love about music. Have RBH ever reached out to you about a review, or have you ever been interested in reviewing their stuff? Yes, and yes. I don't know why I've not gotten anything yet. Maybe I should follow up on that, but they were going to send me some stuff at one point. Yeah. Hello from Denmark, Home Theater Denmark. Hello, Denmark. Nice to see you here. Let's see here. I'm about to jump off, but we'll see. Is holographic sound in a system mostly from the music reproduction or speaker placement or amps used? Definitely not amps used. Music reproduction, absolutely, but speaker placement for sure. So, and how it integrates with your room, that also plays a factor. But it's most of the time it's going to be baked into the music, and all the time it's going to be baked into the music. You can't get any better than what's on the disc. At best, you hope to try to recreate what's on the disc, but then the room and the speakers are always going to have their own influence on that. But yeah, definitely not amps used. I know people like to talk about that. It's not the soundstage presence. What it is, and this is speaking from my own experience, blind ABX testing and then looking at measurements to understand what's going on. And I can give you a good example. I did some blind ABX testing a little while back for a couple different amps, and I can't remember which ones it was. But one of the speakers seemed to me like it was wider, right? It just sounded like it was wider. Um, but when you flip back, it was like, well, maybe it's not. But what I realized is that the amplifier had high output impedance, and it was actually being influenced by the speaker's actual impedance. So the speaker and the amplifier were working together to create a profile in the higher frequency that was a bit bumped up compared to the other amplifier and that same speaker. So what I did just to check my sanity, I went and EQ down the top end, the tweeter region of that one amplifier speaker combo to match the other amplifier same speaker combo. And when I did that, it didn't sound as wide anymore. So it told me right then, so I followed it up with blind ABX testing again. So it wasn't like I knew which one I was playing again. It was all blind both times. But the influence of the amplifier's design affected the frequency response, which then made the speaker soundstage sound different. And that was really eye-opening to me. And it's something that I would like to maybe kind of dabble in a little bit more in the future. $5 super chat from Decker. Appreciate it, man. Thank you. Hey, Aaron, I got the Ascend Sierra 1 V2s based off your review, and I absolutely love them. Thank you so much for what you do. Yeah, those are really good speakers. Still in my top 10 for under $1,000 bucks. Really good speakers. Douglas Blake, what's up, man? I've been getting all your emails. I may not reply to all of them, but I've been getting them and I read with great intrigue or great interest. Which one's the right word to say there? You guys let me know. Aaron, have you ever heard or measured the Ascendo stuff? Yes, I haven't reviewed it, and here's why. Somebody sent me one of their slim, was it their slim on wall speaker? And I had concerns about reviewing it um, free space, right? Without mimicking the wall, because the wall is going to do a lot to that design. And so if a speaker is designed to be mounted on a wall and you test it without the wall, you're not doing, you're screwing up. You're not measuring the speaker in the right way. If the speaker is designed to be measured attached to a wall, then hopefully and most certainly the manufacturer, the designer has taken into account the wall's influence, especially with bass and lower mid-range gain. So the reflection that hits that wall and comes back to you, it's close enough in time with certain frequencies that it doesn't cancel out. Some of them do, but some of them don't. And that basically just boosts up the low end a little bit. So if you measure that speaker in free air, it's going to look like there's no bass when it's already accounted for in the design. Because otherwise, if they made that speaker measure flat in free air and then you mount it to a wall, then there's too much bass and it sounds very unnatural. Now, maybe you could fix it with EQ, but if you're using the speaker as designed, then you don't need to go and do that. And you don't need to test a speaker in a way that is not designed to be listened to. Okay. So, having said that, I got one of the Ascendo speakers in to review from somebody who watches the channel, had nothing to do with the brand. That I don't even think they know. If they're watching this, it's the first time they're finding out. I tested it free air, but I told the guy, I said, listen, all I'm going to be able to do is verify the mid range and up response characteristics, see if it matches what they have on their website for their specs. It did. I sent it back to them, and that was that. Now, if they want to send me some stuff to review, that would be fine. I'd be happy to do that. But yeah, that's the extent of that. I don't think I remember seeing your hair this long. You look smarter with this style. Thanks, man. Hold on. I actually was trying to clean up this office space a minute ago, and I came across my reading glasses that I got years ago that I only wore like one day. Well, what about now? I'm gonna try to do this. I don't know if I like this, man. So the reason I got these glasses is because I was having headaches at work. I can't do that. And we thought, well, maybe that my family, my doctor, thought that maybe it was because I was staring at a screen all day before work. Turns out it was just the medicine that I was on. I was taking Adderall, and it was causing me to not eat because I've got ADHD, right? I don't care. Telling you guys, like, everybody freaking has that, like, ADHD these days, so whatever. So I was just not eating, and I didn't realize that that was like a side effect of the medicine, and the fact that I wasn't eating because I was just so focused on my work, that was giving me headaches. And I don't know why I did not put that together myself before going out and getting an eye exam and spending a boatload of money on glasses. But suffice it to say, I learned my lesson and I never wore the glasses again. And I actually got to the point where I started setting a timer to make myself stop and eat because on Adderall or any other kind of ADHD medication, yeah, I mean, it's actually not too bad now to think about it. Ooh, maybe I should take these to work with me and start using them again. But it's weird. All right. ADHD medication will cause you to focus. Like that's what it's designed to do, right? Um, the downside, and this is kind of the tricky part. This is what I explained to people is that it's not so much that it suppresses your appetite, it just makes you freaking forget to eat. You're so focused on work that you're like, oh, it's 4 o'clock. What have I been doing all day? So, anyway, yeah, but for me, it was just food. I just wasn't eating. Once I figured that out, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Have you tried Ritalin? I have not. I take what works for me. And matter of fact, I only take 5 milligram of Adderall. I just take just like a little bit, and it helps me focus the early morning part of the day. And I don't take it every day. I kind of take it as needed, but it has helped me. Now I want to make sure that I say, because again, I know the comment section, I see some weird stuff. I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just speaking from my own experience. Okay. Cool. 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 I think I'm about to bail out. I want to make sure that I got every super chat if anybody did any. Um, but no, I got to say, I really appreciate you all joining and jumping in and watching. And it's been good for me to get back into this. I've missed it, but at the same time, I haven't. I'm sure you guys can understand that. You know, when you hit a good stride in your life and you're just kind of doing your thing, all the other stuff kind of just falls off by the wayside. But I'm passionate about this hobby. I've got some ideas for some videos coming up. I changed up this space a little bit. I brought the monitors and stuff further out to the room, put the camera a little bit closer to me now. So I like the setup a little bit more. Works better with this room. Yeah. So I think that kind of covers any of the super chats. And yeah. Oh, Douglas, you're welcome for not ignoring you. No, man. I get so many emails a day that a lot of times I don't even reply. I just hope that people understand that I'm just really busy. Yeah. Oh, okay. Do I have any tinnitus or any hearing damage? If I do, I'm unaware of it right now. I'm sure when I'm 60, you know, it'll pop up. But for now, I think I'm all right. So, all right, you guys. Well, again, I appreciate you all joining in and giving me somebody to talk to and hang out with for a little bit. It's really been fun. I've really enjoyed this. And stay tuned for the next reviews. Again, if you're interested in any kind of consultation, go check my website. I'll drop a link in the description section below, and you can hire me out to do for an hour or more. We could talk about your system plans, what you want to do, what speakers make most sense for you. We could do virtual setups. I can kind of guide you through what to listen for, what tracks to use, test tones to use, all that kind of stuff. Basically, try to do something helpful with my knowledge in a way that honestly pays me for my time, but also benefits you and helps you have a system that you just really freaking enjoy. Okay. All right. You guys take care. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.